if you had to define the difference between a happy person and an unhappy person, how would you differentiate?
Happy people focus on what they have, and unhappy people focus on what's missing. I've got a cartoon in one of my books, and there's a guy, and he's deliriously happy, and he's eating one slice of cake. And the caption is, happy people focus on what they have. And in the next panel, there's a very miserable guy, and he's got a whole cake minus one slice. Unhappy people focus on what's missing. And so when people say, why is gratitude important? Because you can't be grateful and angry at the same time. You can't be grateful and miserable at the same time. I mean, try it. We just can't do it.
Yeah.
And so it's very much about the questions that we ask ourselves. What do I love about my wife? What am I learning in this job? What's good about living in this town? When we're asking ourselves those questions on a daily basis, then life gets better because we find in life what we look for.
So why do so many people look for what they don't have?
Well, I think increasingly, if we look for one growing factor, it's social media, where everyone's creating this unreal life online that says, look how good my life is, and here's a photo of the meal I just ordered, and this is my new boyfriend, and here I am in Venice, and we can't help but think, is their life better than mine is? And everything that they post has been filtered, and everyone they take 20 photos, and they look perfect, and they choose the one photo where everyone is smiling. And so I mean, it's always been the case that I think we tend to look at what other people achieve, and we don't know how hard it's been for them, and we think, why is it harder for me? And other people's relationships seem to be pretty good from a distance, but then we look at ours from the inside. And so uh, we just need to get to a point where we say, from now on, I want to focus on the good things. I'm not pretending that I don't have issues to deal with, but let's focus on what I have.
Yeah. I can't disagree with you in any sense that social media and just the internet, which is instantaneous and ubiquitous, has steepened the curve of more people being unhappy. And comparison is the thief of joy, or I've screwed that quote up, um, but I think as a species over time, or through the history of time, as a species, I can't say we've been the happiest of species though. And I'm just curious, in your work and your research and your writing and just all of the travels all over the world, what is your hypothesis for why we are so darn adept at finding what's wrong with something versus focusing on what's right? Because social media has certainly shined a super bright spotlight on that, but we've been like this as a species for quite some time.
I think very often we follow our role models, and so it depends a lot on how our parents dealt
Mm,
with self-image issues, and how do our parents approach problems, and were they basically happy, or did they find fun in in everyday life and work? Um, so, I mean, historically, uh, we go back to early last century and before, we weren't encouraged to even feel good about ourselves and make note of our achievements, and certainly we were encouraged to be, overly humble and self-critical, and in some respects, that may have gone too far. That a lot of us have become painfully boastful about what we achieve.
sure.
But I think regardless of what the history is, there's got to be a point in our life where we make a decision, and we make a decision every day, and we say, I choose to be happy. And I'm not talking about what's easy, I'm talking about what's possible. I'll give you an example. Uh, most of us have seen a 2-year-old playing on the furniture at home, and he falls on his head, and the first thing he does is he looks around to see who's watching, who's present, who's the audience, and depending on who is watching him, he will decide whether he will laugh or cry. And we think that's really cute that he's making that decision, but
Yeah.
we forget that we're making exactly that same
Mm.
decision when we're out on the highway and someone cuts us off on the freeway,
Yep.
and we make a decision, am I going to get angry about this or not? We're always choosing. And the more that we can acknowledge that happiness is a daily choice, it's something we're choosing every day. And am I going to look for good things? Am I going to ask myself the questions like, what do I love about my wife? I mean, even in the workplace, there was a professor at the University of Kansas called Professor Shane Lopez, and he wanted to find out uh, these people that are in jobs they love, how is that? Because there's such a lot of talk these days about following your passion, following your bliss. He wanted to find out these people that love their jobs, did they follow their bliss or what happened there? So he surveyed 8,500 people, and 1,100 said we love our job, something like 13%. So then he talked to those 1,300 and he said, what happened for you? Did you follow your bliss? And almost to a person, they didn't talk about following their bliss. They said, I found a good job and I put my heart and soul into it and I surprised people and I nurtured colleagues and I did my best every day. And they said, one day I discovered that my good job became wonderful.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's, that is the data. And just that one understanding can change our life, Roger, when we
Yeah.
finally realize that there is no perfect job out there, that life gets better when I get better.